everybody. Joanna Davis, MCC, has over 5,000 hours of coaching experience. She spent 7 years as senior faculty for level 2 ICF credentialed school, works in-house as a corporate life coach for a South Florida Fortune 500 company of 20,000 plus employees. She is an ICF PCC assessor. She serves as a mentor coach for Reciprocoach and has a small private practice specializing in coaching to executive development. Her passions include the neuroscience of human behavior, creating food forests, and trying to keep up with her Basenjis. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only, the lovely, the beautiful, the talented, the amazing, fabulous Joanna Davis. Round of applause, everybody.
For Jimmy, good grief, he can make anything dramatic. Thank you.
Take it away, lady.
All right. Well, I'm gonna introduce myself by saying I am nervous tonight, and it's not something I normally am. So one of the things that I know is the easiest way to cure nervousness is just to admit that it's there. So here I am, because usually the things that I'm doing are memorizing the PCC markers and then spitting them out by number instead of by what they actually say. And I will tell you, I have read the minimum skills requirement for the MCC credential about 6 times in the last few weeks. How many of you, just out of curiosity, either by a raise of hands or by putting it in the chat box, how many of you have actually read the minimum skills requirements for whatever level of credential you currently hold?
Sure.
Okay. How many of you have read the ones for, and how many here are actually MCC? Okay, wait a minute. Did we have an MCC? I saw, oh, okay, never mind.
We have one, well, 2, Joanna and Marina.
Okay, so Marina's gonna help me teach the class. I'm gonna call on my
sucker in the room.
Call on my fellow MCC.
Are you sure? Perhaps
Yes.
it's not a good thing. Okay, I can read the minimum requirement. I will read it and you will explain.
Ah, is that how it works? We just struck a deal. All right. So how many of you besides Marina have read the minimum skills requirements for MCCs? I'll tell you what.
Patricia has, and I saw somebody else, Karen.
Okay, so a few of you have. That's perfect. When I read it the first time, I was intimidated, and I am an MCC. And then the more I read it, the more I realized it reads like poetry. It really is quite lovely. And it really is quite true. And I know that each and every person in this room, in some respect, is serving at an MCC level already. I know that beyond the shadow of a doubt, because each one of you have excelled in some area, some of you in more areas than others. And it's not a competition. When I got my MCC, and I'm a big one on saying, do you have to be an MCC? No. When I got my MCC, I was incredibly disappointed because they did not send a band and a parade and fireworks. And I thought they should have.
They could have called me. I would have come and sang and danced and played something for you.
I love it.
I think he would. He would.
We know he would have. Yeah, Jimmy would have been there for that. Yes.
This is what I want in this group. I want this interaction. Otherwise, it's going to be a real dry night. And I don't do dry presentations. One of my prime values is fun. So we're going to make this thing fun. And it is going to involve some reading. So I hope everybody is okay with that, and that maybe you can participate. If you're somewhere where you can't participate, just stay off camera and we won't worry about it. And if you want to pass, it's fine. But when I remember my first day, my first week of coach training, I'm sitting in the classroom looking at those gods up at the front of the room, because they had MCCs. And that was really how I viewed them. And I knew I would never have an MCC because I never wanted a credential. I wanted nothing to do with corporate life. And what do I do now? I have an MCC and I work in a corporation. And it wasn't my intention, but I'm saying that to say that whether you want to have an MCC or not, you're in the right room, because we're all here as coaches and we're all here to up level our game, including the MCCs in the room. Am I right, Marina? Yeah. Yeah. Even MCCs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me too, was just, it was a kind of accident. I was the first in Italy. Yeah. I was the first in Italy being credentialed as an MCC 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just said, oh gosh, I read the Core Competencies and I said, oh, this is me. And then I started joining ICF and so on. And then I counted the hours and I said, oh gosh, 2,680. 20 years ago, and I said, probably I had to get a credential. But it was a kind of, I didn't want it. So I understand you completely. It happened.
Yeah. And what it also means is it can happen for everyone in this room, whether you believe it or not, even if you don't even have an ACC yet. I didn't have an ACC at one time. I was not born with an MCC credential. Promise. Matter of fact, I've only had my MCC about 5 years. So that's, yeah, I'm a baby in the MCC world. I'm officially like a kindergartner. So when it comes to MCC, who can tell me what makes it different, an MCC from an ACC or a PCC? Just off the top of your head. Eric.
One of my coach instructors said the ACC drives with 2 hands on the wheel and the PCC drives with 1 hand on the wheel and the MCC drives with no hands on the wheel.
I love that.
That getting it right?
I love that. I love that way of looking at it, because I drive with my knee more often than I should. That's my car, not my coaching. Who else has an idea? Scott, yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to an MCC at Luminous, and he said the more you advance in your coaching credential, it's more about the being of coaching than the technique. So I'll throw that out.
Very much focused on the being of the client and the being of the coach, rather than the doing of anything. It's I've been watching my coaching this week just because I've been studying this so much. And just in watching my coaching, it's really, it really amazes me what I can get done in the amount of time I can get it done in. And yes, I see in the chat, I love that Scott just dropped Luminous in the room.
Well, that was a free plug for the conference. So next year, everybody on this call, I expect to see you all there.
Sounds like a great plan. Anybody else want to speak to what makes an MCC, PCC, ACC different?
Well, Joanna, I can speak my personal experience. I'm one of the fortunate ones, and being able to get coached by Joanna for 2 times now. And my experience with Joanna's coaching versus other coaches that I've had, it's just, I don't know, I come in always with pretty, I would say, emotionally charged topics. And then with the ACCs or PCCs, it feels like it's a struggle. It's also a struggle. It's like a struggle with me sometimes. It takes a long time to really get to shift my energy and shift and my mindset. But with Joanna, it's just like, I don't know, it's so easy and smooth, and then less than 30 minutes, and I'm in a completely different space. I don't even know how that happened. So that's just my personal experience.
Well, look at that. I got a plug for my coaching too. Thank you, Coco. Suli, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say that I notice how fast and deep a MCC can go, and without really with the ability to listen beyond the words and everything that on a higher level and on a deeper level and in a faster level, applying all the process that we have. So what I see is the ability to reach and remove the unwanted or the noise and get to the point with all the skills together. That's how I feel.
I love that. I love that definition because it speaks to what I believe to be true about the MCC. And the ICF talks about it too, is it's a progression. And it's a progression of the basics. And there's at some point, I'll get to the actual verbiage that they use, but they talk about really being fluid in the basics and being able to encapsulate 2, 3, 4, 5 of the competencies all at the same time, instead of each individual thing running on its own. But in order to get there, it's those baby steps. It's those little steps of practicing each individual competency at whatever level we're at. And believe it or not, I am still practicing. I still get out this is my list of the PCC markers. I still get out my PCC markers and I decide what I'm going to practice this week. Because for me, it's a never ending learning curve. You know, just because I got my MCC does not mean I'm done. So one of the things that the ICF says that separates the MCC or it's required of all of us. It's required of all of us, but it's really required of an MCC is that they be an active learner. And I think the more that we're trying to learn about our clients, the more fully we're able to serve them and release what we're trying to be as a coach. We're trying to do, even more importantly, as a coach. So what does it mean to be an active learner of your client?
I think this is Jimmy. I think it means being really present and paying attention, like just listening, not hard, but openly and really paying attention.
Yeah. And it also, I think, means in right in keeping with that is, I don't know. How many of you are super, super comfortable in the space of not being the expert? I am when it comes to coaching. I am not when it comes to other areas of my life. And I've had to let go.
I know.
Oh, Clara, did you want to add something to that? Oops.
No, I made a mistake and I said hi to a neighbor. I'm on a walk, so apologies.
Welcome.
Keep
Glad
on,
you're
keep
here.
on.
Glad you're here. Being
Can
able
I say
to
something? Can I just add in there again, since this is super interactive?
Yes.
You know, talking about the I don't know, I am very uncomfortable with not knowing. And I have found that, well, today, on 2 of my coaching calls, I found myself starting to get too engrossed in the story of what was going on. And I had a masterful moment because I was aware and I was like, oh, wait, don't go there. Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. It doesn't matter what their plan is at this point. Just help the person get into a space that will put them in a place where they go, oh yes, this is what I need to do. I understand now. So it's hard though. It's really hard for me not to get into that story. Like I so want to solve a puzzle and I struggle with this every single session.
Well, I love that you bring that forward, because in that you were demonstrating being an active learner too. Yeah, because you weren't solving, you were learning alongside of. And again, this is that thing of, I'm going to catch you being a masterful coach, and you caught yourself being a masterful coach. So that's absolutely gorgeous.
I will say this, the only reason I caught myself today, I think, is because I knew you were speaking today, and I was like, and your face popped into my head. I was like, oh, wait, Joanna would not allow this.
It's because my face is on the wall behind you.
Exactly.
You're adorable. Sully, I see you've got your hand up.
You know, what I struggle with is I'm a solution person. As a strategic thinker, you always see a solution. So I have to hold back from that space of seeing the solution and step back.
Yeah.
And just allow to listen in all levels with the client's body, their emotions, whatever is bringing out, and not even see a solution. So it's a mental process that I have to do. Otherwise, I'm, as a problem solver, you have to step back. So that's my challenge, always to step back and not see. I have to embody the client's actual situation and allow it to unfold for the client, and not have the expectation of that solution. So that's my challenge.
As we go through the competencies tonight, one of the requirements is for an MCC, and you're calling yourself on it, so you're getting closer to it, is that if you go for the solution too soon, no credential at the MCC level.
No.
So it really, we will get there. So speaking of that, I'm gonna dive in. If you've got the minimum skills requirements up, you may see that I kind of follow along with it. But at the first, for competency 1, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to read one paragraph out to you, just so you kind of hear what they're asking for. I mean, it really is a bit poetic. Among the hallmarks of MCC level coaching is the fluidity and artistry with which a coach engages in a coaching conversation. This can manifest in a variety of ways. Most commonly, MCC level coaching is demonstrated through the depth of skill in a specific coaching behavior, or through the integration of multiple competencies simultaneously in a seamlessly blended manner. I can't even read their poetry well, but it's absolutely gorgeous. When someone calls you out that you have to be seamless, it's a little intimidating for me. So, demonstrates an ethical practice. This is a requirement at all levels. There's not a specific MCC level on that. But what it does say is an applicant must remain consistently in the role of a coach within the performance evaluation at the MCC level. This includes demonstrating knowledge of coaching conversation that is focused on inquiry and exploration, and a focus based on present and future issues. An applicant would not pass the competency if they focus primarily on telling the client what to do or how to do it, consulting mode, or if the conversation is based primarily in the past, particularly the emotional past, therapeutic mode. So there's a lot of, when I'm listening to coaching calls at the ACC and PCC level, there's a lot of focus on the past. There's even a good bit of focus on the present. At the MCC level, you can't do that. And this is that thing of, how do you move the conversation into the future-based orientation that we're looking for, that is the hallmark of coaching. So embodies a coaching mindset. Again, competency 2 is required at all levels and is not measured in any of the competency exams. It's measured through the coach knowledge assessment. So are there questions on embodies a coaching mindset or demonstrates ethical practice that anybody has for tonight? Because if not, we're going to skip right into what they do measure. Okay. All right. So competency 3 establishes and maintains agreements. They're looking for full partnership. So it cannot be that the coach leads in any way, shape, or form. It's a full-on partnership. What does it mean for you to be a full partner with your client? Jimmy, this is where breakout rooms would be good, but I don't want to take people away from the main room because I think we're getting some good stuff.
Yeah, I think we can do this. Yeah, we can do this live in the big room. Sure.
So when you think of full partnership, who's got an idea of what full partnership is with your client? Eric, and then Galia.
Well, I mean, I'll take a stab at it. I mean, for me, it means fully believing in them and fully being there for them as a support partner and accountability partner. But for me and my clients, it means doing that not only in session, but also throughout the in-between session times as well. When they need me, I try to be there for them as can be reasonably expected.
Okay, beautiful. Galia.
Yeah, I think it's about co-creating from the very beginning and both people having the ability to say yes, no, or let's renegotiate this, because it changes over time when you're in an agreement. And so just making sure that the in the spirit of co-creating always, that's a partnership, I think, and it avoids leading.
Yeah, the co-creation is so important. They talk about the clarity and depth of partnering. And let me see if I've got clarity and depth in creating an agreement for the coaching session. And then the depth of partnering with the client in the creation of the agreement, the measures of success, and issues to be addressed, as well as the coach's ability to attend to the client's agenda throughout the session. So it can't be the agenda is for the first 5 minutes and the last 10. It has to be the entire session. And it really talks about the measures of success. The coach has to fully explore with the client what the client wants to work on. So what I've seen done from the MCC level that's different is it may take me 10 minutes to get the agenda, or it may take me 20 minutes to get the agenda, but I don't move off spot until I've got the agenda. And that takes a lot of confidence in my coaching. You know, when I didn't have confidence in my coaching, I would let the client wander all over the place because I was afraid to upset them and interrupt them. So as I got more confident in my coaching, then I became more, no, I don't know where we're going. So I liken it to an Uber driver. You call for an Uber. You do not have to know the route to get there. All you have to know is where you want to go. But Uber does not send a car until you know where you want to go. Same with me as a coach. I don't move until I know where you want to go, until I really have an understanding and have an understanding of what makes it meaningful for the client. Because if I don't know what makes it meaningful for the client, well, chances are neither does the client. And the funny thing is, once I know meaningfulness, I can get anything I want out of that client. They will literally tell me anything if I relate it back to their meaningfulness. And sometimes just talking about the meaningfulness is enough to get them to move. Comments?
Destination plus meaningfulness. Very helpful.
There you go. There you go. Other comments on how you get clients to focus down into the agenda or questions? Heather.
I have a question on the meaningfulness aspect of it.
Mhm.
Can you give me an example of a question on defining meaning? Like, what will this mean to you if you achieve this goal? How will this benefit you or impact you? Can you help me with that question?
You just gave me 2. Those are perfect. Yeah. Yeah. What makes this important for you? What makes this matter enough to bring it to coaching today? There's all kinds of ways to ask that question. Now, if you're sending in something to be evaluated, and what is the meaning of, here's your agenda, name it out, to you today?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one of those things we, in the assessor community, we call it dropping breadcrumbs. If anybody's sending in for assessment, using the words is just little magical breadcrumbs for your assessor. You don't have to use them. The assessors really are smart enough to figure it out, but you know, if you're gonna make their job easy, make it easy. Yeah, absolutely. And regularly checking with the client throughout the session. This is one that's hard for me still. Especially when it's not going well. And that's when it needs to be asked the most, is what I'm learning, because I've challenged myself just since I started reading this to do it more in sessions that are going badly in my head. I had a session today, I thought it was completely off the rails. And I said, well, how are we doing on your goal of XYZ? They said, you know what? I'm not anywhere close to a solution, but verbalizing it is helping me do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, wow, look at that. I'm over here all worried about what's going on for my client, and they're perfectly fine. And all I had to do was ask the question. So again, it's that thing where it not only takes confidence in coaching, but it builds confidence in coaching.
Joanna, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I know that acknowledging and validating is such a basic ACC marker, but I think it helps to define that meaning sometimes, because we can hear something and think it's X, and they're not, and when we repeat it as what we heard, they're like, oh no, that's not it at all, and then they get to pivot. So is there any downside to too much acknowledging and validating when you're sending this recording in by the evaluators at that point when they're listening to that?
I've heard it that if it sounds like a parrot, that's not good, but no, I don't think there's a downside to acknowledging and validating. Assessors know what you're doing. You know, assessors know that there is a certain level of that is needed. But if you're, we've had, there's coaching schools that teach people to repeat word for word what the client just said. And those are not well received. So
Got it.
Does that
answer
answer the question? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments on that from the assessor community?
I'm not an assessor, but I was curious, like, I don't know about, I think it's important to use some of the words they use though, right? Like not parrot it back, but we want to use their language. Like if I use a different kind of word, I use theirs, not mine, just so that there's clarity.
Exactly.
And plus it makes it real for them. And to Gallia's point, if I use their words, they have an opportunity to go, oh no, I didn't mean that. I meant, okay.
Yeah. The brain is a funny thing. It uses one part of the brain when I'm thinking a thought. It uses a different part of the brain when I speak the thought. And it uses yet another part of the brain when I hear the thought, when I hear someone say it back to me. So literally the crazy stuff that goes on inside my head sounds like somebody else's really good idea. Likewise, that really sane stuff that goes on inside my head, oh wow, when somebody else says it to me, like, are you out of your mind? So it really can be that level of clarity for the client. It's super important to actually speak their own words or use the words that they use. You know, if someone says they love trucks and I say, that's great, you love cars, it's not going to land. You know, or you, oh, that's fantastic, you love vehicular conveyances. You know, it's like never going to go anywhere. So yeah, using the client's language is very important. It's actually called out in the MCC level, at the MCC level as well. If you're not using that, it's not going to work. The way that it's written, these, what is it? Yeah, Jimmy, I know you love it when people shuffle paper. Sorry. The minimum skills requirements, the way they're written, they say that a credential will not be given if. So I basically highlight what makes it that you want to be doing. Coach, so for competency 3, coach fully explores with the client what the client wants to work on. They partner with the client to thoroughly explore the importance of the topic, the measures of success, and any changes in the direction of the coaching conversation. They ensure both the coach and client are clear about the agenda, measures of success, and issues to be discussed, and that the coach attends to the agenda and those measures throughout the coaching unless redirected by the client. What do you do? And this is super important at all levels. What do you do if the client redirects the agenda? Who's been in my PCC markers?
I think you are supposed to, I think you ask whether you clarify that you're hearing that they are shifting direction towards or goal potentially.
Yep.
That's what you're hearing.
Yep.
And ask whether that is something that they specifically are choosing to do.
Yes. And then what do you do?
And then you start over with
Yes.
clarifying if they want to shift, and if they don't want to shift, then you reassess and continue.
Perfect. But yes, do 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 again. Every time they change agenda, please. That's so important. And it's such a basic thing. How many of you are already doing that? When the client changes agenda, you automatically go through and do the agenda, do the measure of success, do the perfect. Perfect. So see, you're already working at a masterful level. See, it's not that hard. All right. Let me see, where am I at here? Trying to get over to competency 4. Oh, a couple of the things for MCC applicants. On competency 3 is the coaching conversation happens in a flexible, gentle, and natural manner. So it's never forced. It's never. And what did you say? You know, that whole robotic thing that people get into when they don't know what to say next. Coach notices subtle shifts in the conversation and invites the client to change. Invites the client to change direction. So there's an invitation that comes into it too. Super, super important. So we covered exploring measures of success. Oh, and checking in with the client. We talked about that. Checking in with the client when moving toward what the client wanted from the session. So number 4, cultivating trust and safety. Key skills evaluated: the coach's depth of connection to and support of the client, the coach's depth of trust in and respect for the client and the client's processes of thinking and creating, the coach's willingness to be open, authentic, and vulnerable with the client to build mutual trust. How many of you are already open, authentic, and vulnerable with your clients? Right. You're already doing it. You're already doing it. So you're already getting there, or you're already there on that one aspect of it. It's just adding in little touches here and there. You're well on your way. One of the things that I love is the MCC level coach demonstrates a complete confidence in self, the coaching process, the client as a whole, and a genuine curiosity about and respect for the client's perceptions, learning style, and personal being. Does that sound like a tall order? That's a lot of big words. It's a lot to say that the complete confidence in self. Of course, when somebody gets to the MCC level with 2,500 hours of experience, I guess they should have complete confidence, right? Or getting close to it. But I love the genuine curiosity. Absolutely love the genuine curiosity. And let me see what my other notes on this. The depth of the coach's trust in and respect for the client's process and of thinking and creating. How many of you know how to find out somebody's learning style? Or how many of you really know about learning styles? Because this is one that is kind of easy to pick up, and yet most people haven't covered it. So I'm seeing a little bit of this going on.
Please help us.
I have a master's in special education, so it's not fair for me to comment.
Oh, but you could teach the class. Okay, so Galia is teaching a class on learning styles because everybody needs to know that. So Galia, keep me honest. Is that fair? basically what I listen for is if someone is talking about, well, it looks like this to me, the way I see it, they're a visual learner. Their verbal cues will give me what they're doing. Well, it sounds like, or the way I hear it, that's an auditory learner. So if I'm picking up the client's languaging, I'm also going to pick up their learning style languaging and play that back for them. My cheat when I don't know is I ask how they experience it, or I reference how you experience this, rather than saying, do you see it my way? Can you hear what I'm saying? Do you feel what I'm talking about? Kinesthetic learners or feelers. Galia, what would you add to that that can help them remember real quick?
No, I think those verbal cues is really important. And I think sometimes just stopping and asking, what's your preferred learning style? Because I think as adults, we know. And I think it's really valuable when the client lets you know that, especially visual learners, because they need visuals. If you're, most of us have an auditory level of learning because that's how school is for most of us, and that's what we've experienced. So whether that's our main learning style or not, we're pretty adept at doing that. But if we're visual learners and we don't have the visual, it can be really hard to process and to remember.
Right.
So, and kinesthetic is a whole nother story, and I love those people. That's
Kinesthetics are my favorite.
Yes. That boy who, those boys who rock back in their seats the whole time, those are the kinesthetic learners. Like and you can see it in your client, like if they're moving a lot and when they're talking and, their body stillness and movement is an indication, I think, of their learning style as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that cue for the kinesthetic learners. Thank you. Yeah, because I hadn't even thought about that. And I sit really still and I'm a kinesthetic learner. I know I'm a kinesthetic learner, and I've learned to sit on my hands because I used to overuse my hands. Now I don't use them at all. Beautiful. So trust and safety is where we're at. And that's why, I don't do slides. Jimmy knows this about me. So I very rarely will do a slide or anything like that, a slide deck. And that's why I wanted everybody to have the links. Jimmy, has anybody joined that would need the links again? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I can put them back in there.
You're so kind. Thank you.
I don't have the link.
Okay, yeah, it's just the links to the PCC markers and to the document that I'm actually using for the class, the minimum skills requirements for MCC.
There you are, Valeska. It's back in the chat.
Yes, thank you.
Is there I'm curious. So we talked about kinesthetic learners, and I understand, I believe that the difference between someone who feels and someone who thinks, it's not really a learning style though, is it? Like, you know what I mean? Like how you approach it. Like if someone says, well, I think that, and we keep saying, well, how do you feel? That's going to be a conflict there, right? Like, does that come anywhere into learning styles, or is that just another personality thing that I've got confused?
I'm going to defer to Galia for that one. Because she's got a lot more information on it than I do. And while we've got her here.
Jimmy, can you clarify that question? I'm not sure I understand your question.
So, right. So, and it might be totally irrelevant. But we're talking about whether what sense you use, whether it's auditory, visual, kinesthetic. But what about like the difference between someone who is thinking versus feeling? So if they like to think about it, and they might say, well, I think that blah, blah, blah. So they might be more logical maybe, whereas they say, well, I feel that, and then they might be a little bit more, I don't know if it's emotional or not, but not logically, they might be a little bit more, I don't know, impulsive or something like that. Does that even come into it?
I think when you're speaking, what I'm hearing is like when I hear my clients use those words, I try to help them make the connection between head and heart and being embodied and feeling, like because a lot of people are just, and myself included, are always in our heads. And so dropping into our bodies and into our hearts and to feel that and the sensory integration, that's more sensory integration and embodiment, I think, than a learning style. but it may be a clue to how their default, you know, maybe because I think maybe it's more indicative of like how they show up in the world and how they feel like they need to have the answers and be right and those things, rather than being seen and perceived as an emotional person.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know. Because I was trying, you know, if we're trying to find a shortcut on how do I get this person engaged more, it's not really so much a learning style as a
Processing style.
Well, I think there might be different. I Googled this a few times when this came up in a question that my coach asked me, actually, because I wasn't sure that I got the choices. I was asked what my learning, and honestly, I didn't really think that I really spend a lot of time thinking about how I learn. And I think I have like cumulative, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, I looked it up, and there are, I think, more perspectives. And I'm not sure if that's technical or not, and maybe there's different schools of thought on this, but I think there are different. There's the logic. Right, logical ways of learning. There are a lot of people, that is kind of like almost like a category in and of itself, I think, potentially. And Galia, I could be wrong, but there's verbal also, I think, was another one, right?
Verbal process. Well, those are processing styles. Yeah. Not so much learning styles.
So
but the importance is to honor it, ultimately to honor what your client is bringing.
Yeah.
So if your client is bringing thinking, honor the thinking. If you want to encourage a somatic experience, you know, asking permission for that, you know, would it benefit you? And I've had clients tell me, you know what, catch me when I say that I'm thinking, because I need to be feeling. You know, but it's basically asking the client, again, being that active learner of the client, being a constant student of your client. What can I learn new about my client today? I think I know this person. What can I learn about them today?
Like, I think someone who verbally processes a lot, and, you know, we all have clients who just need to say it and then they start to understand it themselves, because it's finally leaving their head and they're hearing it for the first time. Those people might be experiential learners. Like, they probably go into an environment, like there's some people who read the manual before they take the thing out of the box, and there's some people who take the thing out of the box and start playing it and never look at the manual. Those are experiential learners.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful. See, I love these conversations. This is why I want it to be a conversation, because it really does add so much. The last note I had under trust and safety was acknowledging the client and celebrating their progress. It's actually called out in the competencies that as an MCC, you have to acknowledge your client and celebrate their progress. So if you're celebrating your clients, anybody celebrate your clients? You're there. Number 5, maintains presence. I know I feel like I interrupted the conversation, and yet I know we have to get through all the rest of them. The definition of maintains presence: fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, grounded, and confident. And this is one, who was it that mentioned earlier? I think maybe it was you, Suli, that number 4 demonstrates confidence in working with strong client emotions. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it was Coco that was talking about when the emotions come up. Yeah. So one of the things that caught my eye on this one, the coach's ability to create space for reflection and remain present with the client through both conversation and silence. How many of you are really, really good with silence? I was going to do a test and see how long you were good with silence, but I won't play that game. Just being honoring.
I actually love the silence. I can talk forever, but I love the silence because damn, that's when the good stuff comes. And I've had it happen where sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to ask. Oh my God, I ruined it. I'm screwing up, and I'm quiet for what I think is an eternity. And all of a sudden they're like, thank you for giving me that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a hallmark of an MCC that we will sit and not just sit in silence, but offer silence. When people are writing stuff down, I refuse to talk. Absolutely refuse. It's one of the benefits of being on Zoom. For the first 8 years of my coaching career, I coached only by phone, so I couldn't see what they were doing. I did not coach in person. I did not coach by Zoom or Skype. Back in the day of Skype, aging myself. But yeah, I couldn't see what they were doing. Now I can see what they're doing and I stop. And people will apologize for writing stuff down. And no, this is you processing. I want to leave you all the space and time for that you can use. Oh, thank you so much. I don't have to hurry. No, you don't have to hurry. So that's a big part of that skill, is just being okay with, not just being okay with, but really inviting it. Like that'll be my challenge for you this week. How much silence can you create for your clients? Yeah, I love seeing the nodding heads. Yep. Little smiles. Yep. Okay. So being curious and attentive, the client leading the way. How many of you let your client just lead the way? It's an amazing journey. Yeah, I see those hands going up. That makes me happy. So one of the hallmarks is also comfortable in working in a space of not knowing. There's our maintains presence. Comfortable not knowing. The connection is to the whole of the client. Who the client is, what the client wants, how the client learns and creates, how the client leads the coaching conversation. The coach evidences a genuine curiosity in the client. So this is coming up again. Curiosity is mentioned multiple times in this document as being a very important aspect. The conversation between the coach and client is equal and easy, even in uncomfortable moments. So we're expected to have uncomfortable moments in our coaching. It's actually expected that coaching will be uncomfortable. As a matter of fact, in the old, I don't know if it still exists, but I have an old copy of the comparisons of ACC, PCC, and MCC. And my favorite part was coach, and on the MCC level, coach asks questions that make both the coach and the client uncomfortable. And I'm like, yes, I'm winning. Now we're both uncomfortable. I'm an MCC level.
That was MCC level? Make
Yes.
everyone uncomfortable? That's awesome.
Make everyone uncomfortable. That was not the direct quote, but yes, to ask questions that make both the coach and the client uncomfortable.
That's really
I love
cool.
that. If I take away one thing today, I mean, I've taken away a bunch, but holy cow, that is like, if I can just remember that, ask questions that make the client uncomfortable.
Yeah, how does that fit in?
Safely uncomfortable.
This is Claire. How does that fit in with being gentle with the client?
Well,
maybe Jimmy just said it. I don't know.
And what it says, the conversation between coach and client is equal and easy, even in uncomfortable moments. So it's the equal and easy part of the conversation, that even though I'm asking uncomfortable questions, it's an equal conversation. It's not me putting the client as some kind of scapegoat. It's, hey, I know this is an uncomfortable question and I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you okay with that? I've literally said that to my clients.
What, can I ask something?
Sure.
What does uncomfortable mean to you in this context?
Just that it's unexpected, or something that makes us both uncomfortable, just makes us both squirm a little bit. What does it mean to you?
I've always interpreted as unexpected, I think, yeah. And for the client. And for me, maybe, questions that are going to push a little, and by pushing, well, I shouldn't use that word, but testing, really testing, maybe something that the client seems to be dancing around or doesn't want to address head on, that kind of, you're going to get a sense it's getting skirted. So
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. I have a set of plates in the kitchen. It said everyone else was thinking it, I just said it. So it's saying the things that, we typically in polite society, oh, I wouldn't ask that question in polite society, but I'll ask it of a coaching client because that's what they're paying me to do. They're not paying me to just leave everything on the surface and leave everything under the table. Flip the table over, what was on what was glued to the bottom of it. It really is, and not flip the table over like violently, but it really is that thing of let's expose whatever it is that's hidden. And I think that's one of the hallmarks that maybe isn't said in this document is MCC coaching definitely exposes what's hidden. It brings it out to the surface as the client is ready. Yeah. Suli, I saw you had your hand up.
I was going to say, we are there to challenge and also to peel the if you want to call it, remove the veils or peel the onion in a sense to get to the heart of things. You may not know that the challenging question may be uncomfortable, because what may be uncomfortable for you may not be uncomfortable for them, or vice versa. But it's a challenging question, right? Because you're going deep into the observation of the client as a whole. You can be respectful, and yet it's the discovery of the core of the issue.
Yeah, getting all the way in. I think great questions and great conversations. Thank you. Anything else on number 5 before I switch to number 6? Now I sound like I'm talking about the markers.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe somebody already said it and I missed it, but how comfortable are we with making somebody uncomfortable?
I'm uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want somebody to squirm because of something I did, So
what if that's how they get their best answers?
Yeah.
And I think I don't have the answer to it, but it occurs to me as I heard, because that's a good question, Scott. I agree. When someone genuinely says, wow, that's a good question. People say that all the time, but when someone's like, when they pause and they go, that's a good question. To me, that's a level of discomfort, not discomfort, but uncomfortable. Like you're like, yeah, we're going somewhere. I'm uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what we mean, helping them get into a space of uncertainty because they've got to gain some clarity.
Yeah, I think, Scott, it's a great question. And I mean, I'll tell you, Joanna, that's going to be my practice for the week, trying to get, everyone uncomfortable. I think that's an excellent, because it forces the issue. I mean, because you're right. We're not getting paid to skate around what the hell's going on here. Like, let's get to it, So I love it. I think it really forces the thinking and sharpens the craft. So thanks for that a lot.
Well, most of us want to be liked, and do we want to risk that? But I think when we realize that in asking a deep question or asking something that makes them uncomfortable or challenged is kind of our bread and butter, then I can lean into it and go, yeah, this is where I'm going. And I can, I guess that's where the word risk comes in, that you had mentioned earlier.
I feel like it's essential to the paycheck. Like, I feel if we're not doing that stuff, they're not going to keep paying us.
We don't pay our friends, Scott.
Yeah. Our drinking buddies.
Heather, I saw your hand.
One thing I wanted to add is in the discovery session or in setting the initial coaching agreement, one thing I like to say is what to expect in the coaching relationship if you want to be as successful as you say you want to be, is there may be uncomfortable questions. You may not like me, but you may like the results. So when there can be discomfort, I go back to the original coaching agreement.
I like that. You may not like me, but you'll like the results.
Yeah,
So how
Heather, I
willing are
want
you to take risks on this, and how uncomfortable, how far out of your comfort zone are you willing to go to achieve to achieve your results? And then I hold them back to that. I might not be the most likable, lovable coach, but I'm not there to be the teddy bear. I'm on your team. But you may not like me during this process. And my best coaches, maybe I haven't loved them, but I've loved my results. And that's the way I tee it up in the beginning. Because sometimes I come recommended as a high results coach, but I'm not maybe not the lovable one. And I tee that up in the beginning. But I think they do like me at the end. But when we get uncomfortable, I'm not the comfortable shoe coach. I'm going to push the limit.
And yet we're called at the MCC level to be gentle. So it's
And I'd like to think
Yeah.
that I am very tender. I hold the relationship in a tender space.
Yeah.
But asking the tough questions is part of it.
But those are different concepts, right? Creating or making space for discomfort and being gentle, to me, are actually different things.
and yet they can coexist. Think of a doctor.
Yeah, but because they are different, I kind of think it makes it easier for them to coexist, because I personally view them as different.
Got you.
I think you can be gentle by sort of telegraphing what's going to happen and say, here's one of those questions that we talked about that might be really challenging. Are you ready? And then fire away. I don't know that you have to do that all the time, but that might be a way to, communicate that you're caring, you're sensitive to what they're going through, and you're tender at the same time. But here we go.
Beautiful.
May I
Yes.
add something? So I think there is also this aspect. So it's also uncomfortable so for loads of partners to think out of the box. So they say they want something. They say they want the solution. They say they are, but they continue in the loop of their thoughts, in the system of their mind. They continue staying there. So uncomfortable questions are also related to discover the schemes, to give them an impulse to think in a different way. And it needs courage, as you said, and I agree with all what you're saying. And it also needs the strength to go on, because when you try to move someone, not to move, but at least to make this someone understanding what he's doing or what she is doing to objectives, to the way she or he thinks. So it needs strength. So it's tiring sometimes because he or she continues with the resistance or thinking every single moment in the same, yes, I want it, but, okay. And it needs also, it's tiring sometimes, and you have to continue, and then you have to tell yourself, okay, it's not a question of being loved here, as Heather, and not just Heather, said, but it's a question of, do you want the result? So I show you something. Do you want to see it? And tell me, what do you think about it? Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
But at the beginning, when we establishing the agreement, that's, for me, I've always asked, how would you like the coaching to be? Do you accept the challenge? Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to be, called on the things that you do? And that way you get to know your client ahead of time. And then when you ask the challenging question, you refer right back. You stated that that's what you wanted to be moved. So I think.
And yet, do they really want that?
Well,
but sometimes they say they want. Sometimes it's normal, and I agree with it. Sometimes they say, yes, I want it, but it's not true.
Yeah.
No, they really
realize,
don't, but they
no?
say they do, yes.
But it's a great help what you say. It's a great help.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let's go on to listens actively, because I know that Jimmy has a couple of announcements before we close. And we've only got a little over 20 minutes
Plenty
left.
of time. Take your time.
I'm loving the conversation.
You know, it's quite 1 o'clock here in Italy. So.
Oh my God, hurry up, hurry up.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Marina, do you have another friend that's that signed in with, because I saw another name I'm not familiar with. Are they in Italy as well? Marie Cruz?
There is a
No?
no.
Okay.
No.
so you're 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we've got to move things.
All right.
Quite, yeah, quite 1 o'clock. Yeah, but
Oh,
you know,
hello
it's not
guys.
the-
I'm Patricia
that's
from
what
Italy too, but
Oh,
I'm in
that's it,
Miami.
Patricia. I knew there was somebody else.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I'm in
but
Miami
Patricia-
Beach. I'm here in Florida.
Ah,
So
good.
I always look forward to see what you're doing. So I'm very glad to be here this evening. And also that Marina is joining is something that makes me happy, you know. So thank you, Joanna, too. Thank you, everybody.
Glad you're here.
Yeah, because Patricia is my friend, is a close friend of mine. But I was thinking that you were talking about another person.
Okay, I knew that there was a pair out there. So thank you very much, both
Yeah.
of you, for joining us today. So happy.
Good. Oh, I'm happy to be here too. I found all this conversation. It's been really great, and I'm talking about silence. It was good to stay in silence and listen to you. It was great.
Beautiful. So going on to listening actively, since we're talking about listening, I was really struck by one of the things that it says here. A coach will not receive a passing score. And I know I don't read much about a coach will not receive, but it does say this. A coach will not receive a passing score for actively listens actively on the MCC performance evaluation if the coach does not demonstrate listening that is based on the whole client and an ability to hear the client's thinking, learning, and feeling at multiple levels. The coach will not receive a passing grade at this level if the coach listening is filtered only through the coach's methods of thinking, learning, and creating, and does not actively hear and use as a significant coaching tool the client's methods of thinking, learning, and creating. So again, being
And
asked.
also does it consistently, because its consistency shows and demonstrates this through the whole session. It's a question of totality.
Yes.
So you meet the client and the totality, and this must be I'm an assessor. I confess it.
We had to have
I'm an MCC assessor. I confess it, and it's really a question of totality, that you meet the person on the whole. You know, the whole is understanding the context, understanding the mindset, understanding beliefs and values. Really the whole, and that's a challenge. Because you must you were talking about curiosity. So for me, the best approach is that I'm here, I'm curious. Let's see what happened. Let's see what's here, and then let's see what I can do for you through the techniques, the methodology, the process, and so on. And you have to do for yourself, obviously. Sorry.
Oh, no apology necessary at all. And please, a round of applause for the assessor, because good Lord, without assessors, where would we be? So thank you. See, I told you you're going to help me teach the class. I'm losing my voice. How many of you as coaches don't talk a lot at the end of the day and trying to speak through a class? Woo! One of the things I also wanted to read out on here is the coach's response is evidence that the coach is hearing the client's intuitive abilities, the client's energy, when the client speaks of important things, when new growth is occurring for the client, how that growth is related to the client's stated objectives and agenda, and when the client is finding, creating, and using a more powerful sense of self. Is that not poetic? Is that not the most beautiful thing? I'm really just going to encourage you to grab a copy, and it turned out how many pages? I don't know, a dozen pages. but grab a copy of it and really just dive into some of these definitions. Because to me, it's inspiring to even think about this is the level of coaching that we're demonstrating. And I know Jimmy's keeping my time honest. So evokes awareness. The coach's ability to explore with and evoke exploration by the client of the underlying beliefs and means of thinking, creating, and learning. Again, it's that holistic thing, but the underlying beliefs, the underlying, getting at the underneath, not so much the solution, but really getting at the source of what's underneath it all. The coach's use of inquiry, exploration, and silence and other techniques that support the client in achieving new or deeper learning and awareness. The coach's invitation to an integration of the client's intuition, thinking, and language as critical tools in the coaching process. Jimmy, you asked about using the client's language. Absolutely. It's a critical tool in the coaching process. There's an invitation to the exploration of important issues that precedes and is significantly greater than the invitation to a solution. So what you were talking about, Suli, when you said that you're talking about solutions, the invitation is the exploration of important issues has to come first. And then do we get to solution? Absolutely. But the solution is more based on what's underneath the problem. The way that I describe it is the client comes to the coaching with a rock. They say, this is the problem. But if I pay attention and I flip the rock, there's all kinds of stuff that crawls around underneath the rock, and there's layers underneath the rock. The problem is never the problem. There's always more to it. And my favorite question is, and what else? And what's underneath that? Because that opens up a whole new level of learning. The coach asks mostly, if not always, direct, evocative questions that are fully responsive to the client in the moment, to the client's agenda and stated objectives, and that require significant thought by the client or take the client to a new place of thinking. Tall order. Those are big orders. And yet, I really do believe that as we ask the basic questions, that's the building blocks for asking the bigger question, for asking the more total questions. So just keep asking your questions. Ask the questions you know, and then ask the questions that you don't know. Ask the questions that just respond to whatever the client just said, or whatever you're curious about in the moment. That will take you closer to that MCC level. The coach makes frequent and full use of the client's language and learning style to craft questions, insights, or observations that provide a space for the client to use and expand their own style of thinking, learning, and creating, and to discover their power, gifts, and strengths. See, it's poetry. I feel like now I'm just reading the paper too. Coach partners with the client to explore the client's stories, metaphors, and imagery. So how many of you use metaphor and imagery with your clients already? Beautiful. How many of you are using specifically your client's metaphors or exploring specifically your client's metaphors? Beautiful. So when the client comes up with the metaphor, then it's a more powerful way of exploring. Anytime my client comes up with a metaphor, I immediately ask them what that is, or I immediately start using it in my coaching. Anybody have a question about what a metaphor is? Good. Okay. I'm just checking. It's a fair question. Jimmy's laughing at me.
No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because that's a good question.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that I had to explain metaphor, and I do not have a problem explaining it.
I actually am pretty bad at metaphors, so they just can become so convoluted that I'm kind of happy when my client comes up with something and just delve into that.
Amen.
But also I see how much more powerful it is when they come up with it themselves, obviously. So
yeah.
I'll direct you to listen to Lissa DeHart. She was in January. She was one of our speakers I think maybe that old masterclass, she might have talked a little bit about that. That wasn't the main point of it, but she does metaphor stuff a lot. Lissa D. Hart,
Okay.
D-E-H-A-R-T. She got a podcast too. It's pretty good.
Awesome.
That's cool. I didn't know that. What's it called, her podcast?
Mm,
Yeah, well, I'll look it up.
Coach's Studio?
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. I love advertising for other coaches, for all of our coaches. It just makes me so happy. Coach stimulates new insights with minimal, precise questions. Do you have to be minimal and precise immediately? No, but you will get there with practice. Oh, somebody said she has great YouTube content too. Ooh. Nice. Coaches.
She,
questions-
oh,
Whoops.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, Listen to Hearts. I keep her. She did a really cool printout of the core competencies that I keep on my desk. You know, hers. What a great little marketing tool for coaches. You know, do your own interpretation of the core competencies, put your name on it, then distribute it. It's awesome.
That's smart. I should have done that.
Listen to Heart. Always marketing, right? Always be marketing.
For those of you who love metaphors, I also love metaphors and analogies. I just got this book. I haven't finished reading it, but can you guys see that?
Don't just have the soup.
Yeah. So it's analogies for leadership, coaching, and life. But Alan Heyman is a leadership coach. So
Thank you. Can you put that in the chat for us?
yes.
Because the chat also gets saved. So that'll be perfect. Let me see. Coach asks questions that challenge the client to explore more deeply or go beyond current thinking and feelings. So it does talk about challenging the client. You're safe challenging your clients. And shares with fluidity insights, observations, or questions from the client's words and actions to foster awareness. The evaluation will be negatively impacted if the coach frequently asks questions that keep the client in the past or in present detail of a situation rather than forward thinking, or if the coach drives the client towards solutions without fully exploring issues that may be important to gaining complete solution or accomplishment for the client. So this goes back to previous conversation. And then our last competency of the night is facilitating client growth. Key skills evaluated: the coach's ability to partner fully with the client in designing actions from their new awarenesses, which may include thinking, feeling, or learning that support the client in moving toward their stated goals or agendas. And, you know, I love that they talk about clients' new awarenesses, because oftentimes at the ACC and PCC level, we're so focused on solution that we're not really checking on the new awarenesses. And one of my favorite questions is, how can you carry this new awareness into your week ahead? Because it's hard to take an awareness and turn it into an action item unless you've got a question like that. How can you carry this new awareness into the week ahead? That makes it super easy. Because how many of you have clients that come up with new awarenesses? If everybody doesn't raise their hand, it's because they're sleeping. All right. Let me see. There's one here. The client, let's see, supports the client in reflecting on what the client is discovering about themselves. The MCC coach demonstrates trust in the client to develop actions and accountability structures. I've had coaches, I've listened on calls where coaches are saying, and how do you want me to hold you accountable this week? That is not an MCC level. An MCC level asks, how will you hold yourself accountable this week?
Yeah.
What accountability measures? Eric, do you do that?
2 hands off the wheel. No, I was saying, you know, yeah, 2 hands off the wheel. We don't drive.
That's true. I love that 2 hands off the wheel analogy. The MCC coach demonstrates trust in the client to develop their actions and accountability structures. Yep. So just letting the client drive their own bus. The coach checks in with the client and their progress, learning, and insights in natural and spontaneous ways throughout the session. So it's not just the end of the session, it's throughout the session. Coach invites the client to sense and reflect on what they're learning about themselves. How many of you do that? It's not something that I do all the time. And I love that whole thought. The coach invites the client to sense and reflect what they're learning about themselves. And then coach cultivates an environment for the client to intentionally apply their own learning.
That's something I've been doing. That's something I've been experimenting with over the past week or two. What have you learned about yourself? How are you going to apply it? It usually goes somewhere really interesting.
Yes. Yeah. It's some of the most fascinating work. And that's why I'm like, don't leave that for the last 5 minutes, because it'll turn into the last 15 minutes really fast. The coach encourages client leadership in planning strategies, actions, and methods of accountability. So the client is leading it. Ooh, and look at that. Everybody's buying, don't just have the soup. I love it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna have to watch a recording for the last few minutes.
So Jimmy, what did I just say?
I have no idea. I cannot multitask, no double tasking. It's impossible.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So what did you learn tonight that excites you that you want to take into the week forward? I know there's too many of us to each individually go through. So if you put it in the chat box, what are you going to be taking with you from this week to go into the week forward? What are you going to task yourself with? Look at me not being, this is a true MCC in action. I'm not telling you what to do. Uncomfortable questions, agenda and motivation, tie them together more intentionally. Create a space of uncomfortable, gently. Always having a chosen skill to practice on for the week. Read the comparison talk. Oh my gosh. The rock analogy. Use it and ask what's underneath. Coaching styles. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. What questions do you have before I turn it over to Jimmy?
What was the rock analogy? I think I missed that. What was that quickly?
Oh, that the client comes to the coaching session with a problem. That's the rock. Never settle for the rock. Look what's underneath it. Flip the rock and start to dig. Yeah. That's my baby. Editing standard coaching agreement document to include some of these requirements. Yes. Yes. Let's see. Early on, got very concerned that I wouldn't be able to ask powerful questions. Then I just relaxed in my curiosity. The conversation reinforced the mindset shift. Oh, I love that. And you are very welcome. Jimmy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh my goodness. All right. So as always, before you go, remember to do our survey. And someone had mentioned something in the earlier session, so I made that adjustment to this survey. So hopefully you will appreciate that. I listen to feedback and I act on it. What else did I want? Oh, I wanted to say thank you very much, Joanna. This was probably one of the most enjoyable. We've laughed so much. We had such a good time today. This was amazing.